Hey, good evening, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Brad Petovich here. It is a Thursday, and it is August 14th. We are seeing the heat and humidity make a big return. The good news today is we've seen fewer storms. We are going to talk a little bit about the wettest August on record with Tim coming up later. We've had one of the wettest, but not as wet as you might think because, it's still the middle of the month, by the way. We still got a ways to go. And remember, we've had a lot of tropical systems in the month of August in the past, so there has been wetter August periods than this that we've seen. But let's start with a view outside because it is a great looking sky today. We've got some dark looking clouds looking off towards the west from our Dallas camera, our Mr. Sparky camera network. It's clearly showing some sunshine, but also some billowing clouds there as we do have some scattered thunderstorms developing. We'll switch to our WCNC camera here off the Billy Graham Parkway. This is a great shot because you can see the blue skies and it looks pretty nice out there. But if you look off over the horizon there, over the skyline, our gorgeous skyline there, you can actually see a cumulonimbus cloud. That's the beginning of a thunderstorm north of Charlotte. That's up towards Lake Norman. And we'll just kind of focus on this for a second because I want you to look at that cloud because I'm going to show you what it looks like on the radar here coming up in a second. But let's take a close look at that. I'll kind of do my cursor there. So right there, that cloud, that is a big thunderstorm developing north of Charlotte. There's Uptown in the foreground. You see our wasp, our friendly wasp there. But that thunderstorm is up north of Charlotte. And let's focus in on where that storm is. I'll go to the radar and we'll switch over and you'll see a couple storms out there. We've got one south of Charlotte, but let me show you the storm you just saw from our camera there. Doesn't look as impressive on the radar, but that's the storm. It's up near Huntersville, near 485. So that was the storm we saw from our camera. Now to the south, there's a bigger storm. This is the one that moved over Lake Wiley just a while ago. This one's moving between the York and the Chester County line. This is drifting to the south. I'm going to loop this a couple of times just so you can see the general movement, but also notice those green little lines, those outflow boundaries that you hear us talk a lot about. All these storms are producing some outflow boundaries, which are essentially mini cool fronts, rushes of cool air coming out of these storms, and these are going to collide and likely produce some additional storms. And area I'm going to watch is just west of Charlotte. That's where those dark clouds were on our Dallas camera because you could see some of these colliding across Cleveland County, Lincoln County, Gaston County, so maybe a couple storms developing there. We go to the north, we've got a couple stronger storms developing, it looks like right now, up in the areas around Caldwell County, moving down into Burke County. And if you notice the general movement right now, it's kind of north to south. There's a weak cold front coming in. It's not going to cool us off, but it is triggering some of these showers and storms that we're seeing this afternoon. I'll widen the view and you can kind of see, if I were to draw that front on here, I'll actually try to draw it on here real quickly just to show you what I'm talking about. I need to get my cold front. The cold front is somewhere right in here, so kind of roughly in that vicinity, kind of sagging to the south. So if we see a scattered shower storm, that would be the case. So tonight, I expect temperatures will fall back into the 70s. As we look ahead to tomorrow, it's going to get toasty, guys. The heat is back. It's kind of came back the last couple of days. We've had a cool start. We've talked a lot about that on the show the last week and a half. But this has been the last 2 days, the first days in a row, consecutive days in a row above normal since July. So it is starting to heat up out there. The current temperatures, by the way, actually briefly dipped from the upper 80s. We're in the mid 80s right now, but here is something that is going to be the thing that smacks you in the face the next couple of days, the dew point. These are sky high dew points right now. We're talking air you can wear mid 70s, even upper 70s. Look at Lincolnton, 77-degree dew point. So super sticky air. And part of the reason is, yes, the air mass over us is incredibly humid. But remember, all the rain we just talked about, 6 to 8, 10 inches of rain, that moisture is sitting in the soil, it's sitting in vegetation. It's not corn sweat like they have in the Midwest, but this is going to be the kind of moisture that's getting added to our lower atmosphere over the coming days. And because of that, when we look at the dew point forecast, it is really, really hot. You're talking dew points consistently in the mid 70s for the next 7 days. So not a lot of relief from the super sticky air out there. Let's take a look at the future cast. We'll kind of show you the rain chances diminishing tonight with loss of heating, which is something we didn't see last night. We told you that we were going to see rain overnight, and sure enough, we did. And it was that was the heaviest rain of the day. Actually, it was before you got up this morning. Tomorrow during the day, notice lots of sunshine and just an isolated storm. In fact, it could be dry for most of the day. And as we go through time, you'll see even on Friday evening, not much in the way of rain. It's actually getting drier and drier. Now, Saturday morning, a few pop-up storms to our south in the morning hours, and then as we go into the afternoon, another day with relatively dry conditions. So honestly, it looks like we're starting to see the pattern change a little bit with drier and calmer weather going into the upcoming weekend, and that's going to lead to some pretty hot conditions. Now, Tim and I are going to talk a lot about this coming up. We're going to talk about Aaron, some interesting things going out there right now because the hurricane hunters, Miss Piggy, is heading into this storm currently, and we should get some updated data. You can see the Windward Islands there, Puerto Rico, San Juan, off to the left there. The storm still trying to organize. It's going to probably start to ramp up pretty quickly here in the next 24 to 36 hours. Right now, the 5 o'clock advisory has Tropical Storm Aaron with winds of 60 miles per hour. It's moving west pretty quickly, 17 miles per hour, but it is expected to gain strength rapidly here by the start of the weekend. So by Sunday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning, this could be a Category 2 storm with winds of 105, 110 miles an hour. Could be even higher than that. These might be low because we're kind of forecasting some rapid intensification here. And by Tuesday, 2 p.m., which is, it'll still be well to our southeast. It's getting closer to the United States and Bermuda, but this kind of shows you how long these systems take to move across the Atlantic. It first formed last Saturday, and today it's just halfway across the Atlantic. In another 5 days, it's still only between the Bahamas and Bermuda. So kind of tells you the timeline of these things. We have time to watch these. And the good news is, even though we're expecting this to be a strong storm, all of the guidance continues to be very consistent with keeping it offshore. The only concern here is there's a pretty big spread in the guidance, and I think we'll talk about this with Tim. Some of the outliers on the left are pretty close to the Outer Banks, but not exactly onshore, and a lot of them are pretty much right between the Outer Banks and Bermuda, kind of splitting the uprights. Now, regardless of the track, it's going to generate huge swells. We're talking offshore 20, 25-foot waves. These swells are going to build up over time. That's going to push water towards the coast of the Carolinas and really, frankly, the entire East Coast. And that is going to provide rough surf, some beach erosion, maybe even some coastal flooding in some of the low-lying areas that are susceptible to that with high tides. Because the high tides will come up, they won't really go down because the water is going to be pushing ashore. And then really dangerous rip currents. I think today we read something like this past weekend there was 180 rescues along the coast from rip currents. Just stay out of the water next week because this could be really problematic with the rip currents being out there, and that could be an ongoing issue. So I'll show you the 7-day forecast here. It's hot. I mean, our average high is down to 89, our average low is down to 69, and over the next 5-6 days we're going to be way above normal. So that means less rain but a lot more heat and humidity, and with all the moisture around, it doesn't take much to get a pop-up storm. If we go 10 days into the future, we're starting to get towards the start of school coming up here. I mean, this will be the last 10 days before CMS goes back to school, and we are going to see temperatures starting to cool down a little bit by next weekend, and it should start to feel like late summer. So coming up, Tim Buckley's going to join me here from WFMY. We're going to talk about an earthquake that happened today in western North Carolina, which, believe it or not, some people around the Charlotte area reported feeling it. We're also going to talk extensively about what's going on with Aaron right now and what some of the possibilities are, because the recon is out there right now. We'll take a closer look at some of the recon and possibly show you some of the data starting to come in from the hurricane hunters, which the first plane out there was the NOAA P3, which is the NOAA aircraft. It actually has a tail radar on it, so it's going to be collecting some pretty good data for us, and that actually goes into the modeling. So tonight we're going to have possibly some better data going into some of the guidance. So we'll be talking about that coming up here in just a few seconds. All right, welcome back. We're getting through some technical difficulties today, but I think we got it all worked out. Tim Buckley joins me from WFMY. Tim, I hope you can hear me. I think everything's working well now, but just to make sure you're there. How are you doing today, Tim? I don't hear Tim.
We're good. We're good. All is well.
Yeah, there we go.
We're just keeping ourselves on our toes today. But yeah, things are good up here. We had a bit of a downpour just pop up over the last 30 minutes. Now it's gone. Sun's back out. And I'm kind of telling people I'm hoping that darn wet weather pattern is starting to finish for us. And I think we're coming toward the end of it, don't you?
Yeah, I think it definitely today was like, I know it rained in some parts of the area, but today was kind of a more typical summer pattern where you get the pop-up storms, and certainly not as widespread as we've seen the last week. But I think I've heard it from everybody, even coworkers. People are just done with the rain. They want a little bit of a break for a while. And I know, Tim, one thing I want to get into the rainfall in August, because we got some numbers we could show you and talk about that. But I wanted to talk first about the earthquake, because like around 11:15 this morning, we had a magnitude 2.7, almost a 7, 2.7 earthquake in Polk County. And what's always fascinating about these, Tim, is that they're felt over long distances. So, Jeb, can you show our graphic here on Weather One? We actually had some areas around Charlotte, Tim, report that they felt this to the USGS. And there's about 4 locations around Charlotte. I'm going to zoom in on them. That included South Charlotte, an area in Northwest Charlotte, Cabarrus County, and parts of Union County. But then we go over towards the epicenter, and obviously a large area. Now, for a 2.7 earthquake, you wouldn't think, that it would be felt that far. But one of the things that's unique about earthquakes in the eastern United States, they tend to be felt over really long distances. So I know folks from the West Coast often say, yeah, you call that an earthquake? Well, these little ones here tend to be felt over a pretty long area. And I don't know if you had any viewers or anybody close to you, even in the mountains maybe, that reached out to you felt this. But I know in our area, the Lake Lure, Columbus, Hendersonville in particular, we had a lot of people message us saying, hey, they felt the earthquake. They didn't know it was an earthquake at first.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how these things get reported, because it's not, you can't just look at the magnitude and know how far they'll be felt. It's a matter of maybe depth, maybe the exact location, the type of the earthquake that happened there. But this one certainly seemed to punch above its weight when it comes to a 2.7, because we get some of these sometimes, and like you said, they aren't always felt that strongly. But just judging from some of the comments, not really from my viewers, but I was looking at your post over there, a lot of people said not only was it felt, but you ever hear people report this kind of a noise?
Yeah, they heard it.
Almost like a bang. It's a loud thing. And I've felt earthquakes before, certainly the Sparta one a couple years back. I've never really heard that bang or that big loud pop that some people mention. So that's got to be pretty unsettling.
Yeah, I think the timing also is a key part here. Let's face it, as humans, if this happens in the middle of the night, most people are sleeping through it. But it's 11:15 in the afternoon on a Thursday. A lot more people are doing things. They're up and
Right.
about, so they're probably going to notice this one a lot more than if it was like at 2:15 in the morning. So I do want to show you, Jeb, could you bring up my laptop? Because one of the cool things I was like, this is one of our local seismographs, Tim. This is the one down in Blacksburg, South Carolina, which is just across the border. And you can see the seismograph actually picking up what we call the primary wave and then the secondary waves. The primary wave is the one that travels through all substances, liquids, solids. The secondary wave is the one that's more felt. That's the one that travels only through solids. And it was a pretty good shaker. In fact, the local seismograph there had it as a magnitude 2.9. Now, it doesn't mean it was a 2.9. It means just that seismograph. The way the USGS does is they look at all the seismographs that registered it, and they kind of come up with an average. So kind of interesting that some of the closer in ones had a higher magnitude than the USGS did.
It is pretty interesting. It's always cool to see just how these seismographs work. You know, they're out there all the time recording stuff, and they're so sensitive. I love when you post when they're super far away earthquakes that that we can feel them here, which it just is amazing to me that the Earth is so connected and it registers all of these. I am going to pop this up if y'all want it, but I haven't used this in a couple years, so it's an old banner. Even ignore that ugly purple banner.
Corporate, don't look at that.
But just kind of the historic, exactly, the historic earthquake risk across the Carolinas. And this is just, based on history. Where have some big shakers been before? Where have you had some more frequency? A lot of people don't realize the Charleston area has had a lot of earthquake history before, and not wimpy ones, like big time ones. And so there is that risk down in the low country. A little bit of a local maximum out toward the mountains, not too much. But if you widen out even more, I mean, over by Memphis, they call it the New Madrid fault zone. Is that right?
Yep.
An issue over there for sure. But always interesting to me to see how the threats can really vary. And we don't think about it in the East that much, but it is something to consider.
Yeah, the Charleston one always, I think, throws people for a loop. That is the biggest earthquake to ever occur on the eastern part of the country. That was in 1886. It was a 7.3, and that caused damage in the Charlotte area and all across the Carolinas.
Wow.
And my wife is from Charleston. And one of the unique things about Charleston is if you've ever spent time in Charleston, they have unique building codes. It's one of the few places in the country that has building codes for earthquakes and tropical systems. So it is a very unique building code that they have down there because of that. And in the mountains, I always like to tell people, Tim, the mountains got built by a mechanism, and that mechanism is still going on. So you're still going to get some settling going on there. So I thought that was interesting. They are common. I'm glad you brought that graphic up because it kind of shows that, in the mountains and then down towards the low country, those are kind of the two hot spots in the Carolinas. Something else, I'm going to throw you for a loop here, but I saw you posting about this. This is in your old neck of the woods. We had a water spout come ashore down near Ocean Isle and Holden Beach, and actually prompted a tornado warning. And before we get to talking about it, I actually was able to grab a time lapse from the Surf Check camera, which is on the eastern side of Ocean Isle Beach. And so, Jeb, can you bring my laptop up? Now, I time-lapsed this, so I sped it up 4 times. So in full transparency, this is not real time. So we'll play this out. And if you look closely, just behind the house and then moving off to the left, you can see the rotation. And I kind of took my cursor there every once in a while. But roughly right in here, you'll see the rotation clear. It actually looks like a supercell type rotation with the and there you see it spinning up. And then what's interesting is I don't know if this was a storm chaser or just somebody who saw it. They pull up in a car, they stop, they have their flashers on, and then they back up. So I don't know if they saw it. And then at this camera at the very tail end, some folks at this house actually came outside and were taking pictures of it. So clearly they could see this, Tim. And this was kind of a rare I don't want to say rare because water spouts are common down there, but this was a pretty strong looking water spout on the radar at least, and it prompted 2 tornado warnings for that area, both the old Holden Beach and Ocean Isle area. So you used to work down in that area, Tim. Talk a little bit about this, and I know you were posting about it as well, but that was an interesting tornado warning that popped up today because of a water spout.
I'm so glad you rolled on this because I got there just a little bit too late to see it myself, but that's exactly where it was passing. The geography of that area, for those who vacation down there, Ocean Isle kind of butts right up against Holden. You have a sound right in between, and that's basically right where it went, is right from the east end of Ocean Isle to the west end of Holden. And it does seem, we have fair weather waterspouts, which are pretty weak and usually don't move all that much and kind of stay offshore. This was connected to more of a parent thunderstorm, and it definitely had some pretty good rotation going on. I actually got a social video here too. Oh, it really did. I mean, the radar image looked like a solid tornado. Yeah. I'm going to pop up my PC over my face here, so I'm going to say goodbye. Yeah. You can see us. Now, this is from, his name's Jonathan, all right? So Jonathan Martin down there on the west end of Holden. So he's looking at the other view of this, right there on the intercoastal, it looks like.
It is.
And you might not see the condensation funnel the whole time, but there sure is that rotation.
Yeah.
He has some great narration that I've muted here, because there's a couple words, but he's watching, and then he's trying to get safely in too. But you can kind of see it just above the docks. That's not something that happens all that often with these waterspouts, and this is more of a tornado than a waterspout, a tornadic waterspout, I guess we could call it. But pretty amazing to see it on a day like today down that way.
Yeah, I actually because I have a GR Earth on my laptop, and it always, any warning, tornado warning in North or South Carolina, I get this alert, and I like, what is this tornado warning? And I looked at the radar, and I was like, actually taken aback for a second by looking at it. I actually pulled up radar scope here quickly, Jeb, if you want to take a look at it. I went back a couple frames, but you could see this, as Tim mentioned, this was not just a waterspout attached to a cumulus cloud. This actually had a parent thunderstorm and had a hook to it and had a reflectivity core, a bounded weak echo region. These are all like parts of a thunderstorm we look at, Tim, and it was a pretty legit looking tornadic waterspout.
Yeah, it really was, and that whole cell is still just kind of rolling across Brunswick County, so it's going up, towards Southport now. Wilmington's going to get some of it. Looks like the tornado risk is dying out, but at that point, that's a beefy storm. And if you're ever at the beach and you're seeing some of these waterspouts, it's good to be respectful and cautious. If it's sunny out and you're still a safe distance away, you're probably okay. But if they start to inch a little bit closer, you got to get out of the way, man. I mean, when I worked down there was one time where I was in it was Carolina Beach, I guess. One of these things came in, and people just stood there. And they'll do that. I think that happened in Myrtle Beach last week. They just kind of hang around, and I'll tell you, those umbrellas become projectiles real fast.
Yeah.
And they can do damage on a sunny day, let alone when a waterspout is coming in. So get off the beach. If those things get a little motion, it can go downhill fast.
Yeah, this one also had a lot of lightning. Even in the time lapse, I saw a ton of lightning strikes. So that's another reason to get off the beach. Just not the water spout, but the lightning becomes a big danger as well. So yeah, I wanted to throw that at you because I thought that was something that popped up during our shows this evening. It was kind of fascinating, cool, and we got some good video of it as well. But yeah, we're kind of in that season where we start watching these water spouts near the coast. Let's transition a little bit to Aaron. I know you tracked it.
Yeah.
We've been tracking it. We're waiting for this churn to happen. Kind of a key moment tonight. Miss Piggy is out there flying into the storm right now. I think this evening's model suite is going to be interesting because it should have the Hurricane Hunter data. What are your thoughts on Aaron? It still looks consistently offshore, but I think we're all starting to agree there's going to be some at least indirect significant impacts on the coast.
Yeah, and just to be clear, for Miss Piggy is an airplane, so we're sending her in there.
Yes.
That's one of the hurricane hunters. It's named on the side. I think, and it's important to kind of remember, where were we a couple days ago? A couple days ago, I think if you said it was passing between the Carolinas and Bermuda, that sounded a little extreme. So now we're in that mindset where we know it's coming a little farther west, but still it looks to be at a fairly safe distance away. Storms passing between the Carolinas and Bermuda is not uncommon. That is not something that's rare. It is something that if you have that, you're going to have at least water impacts.
Yeah.
So waves, rips, baked into the cake at this point, I would say. To me, Brad, you can agree or disagree. If I'm in the Outer Banks, if I own property over there, I'm watching pretty nervously
Yeah.
Right now, anytime a storm gets that close, I remember Earl, which was like 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
But that was a major hurricane. The center passed probably 100 or so miles offshore.
Yeah.
They still had bad winds and rain and the flooding that comes along with that. So there could be some shore impacts to those areas, but it's mostly probably the Outer Banks that have to worry at this point, to me. And we'll see when the data improves and consolidates a little bit. But
Yeah.
we've been pulling up these super ensembles and everything, and you really have to hype it up if you want to say this is a Carolina hit, because it's not yet.
No. Yeah, I think that's the key. I mean, the farthest left extreme is still barely on the coast, and it's offshore. But you bring up a good point. The Outer Banks are very susceptible to water in any low barrier island, because what I think is going to happen, Tim, is this approaches from the southeast. It's not going to be happening real quickly. It's going to take days to get up there. And what happens is these swells get pushed against the coast, so every high tide comes up. It doesn't really go back to low tide. The next high tide is a little bit higher, and the next high tide gets a little bit higher because the water can't recede because there's more swells pushing water. So the water tends to build up over a couple of days.
It really does. And remember, when we're looking at lines on the map here, if you're looking at a spaghetti model, what that line is, that's a computer's simulation of the center of the storm. Hurricanes are not tornadoes. They can be hundreds of miles wide. And so the impacts go far out from those individual points. So just because the spaghettis are all offshore, even if it stays that way, there could still be some coastal impacts. So keep that in mind. I wouldn't cancel any vacation plans, but I'd pay extra close attention if you're in the Outer Banks, especially, south of Nags Head.
Yeah, especially the Outer Banks. I think Highway 12, we all know it. We joke about it, but it's seriously, anytime there's a coastal storm anywhere offshore, there's overwash and there's usually issues. So getting back and forth, and especially cars, it tends to be like the vehicles end up getting the brunt of this when people park at a beach house, because the houses are on stilts for a reason, but the cars are parked out at ground level. They tend to be the ones that end up getting water, and people kind of take that for granted. They'll go to sleep and wake up the next morning and their car is not just underwater, it's salt water, which is like the worst thing you could ever have for your vehicle.
And we maybe haven't mentioned enough when I'm forecasting. I kind of forget sometimes. The daytime, or the time frame, would be about Wednesday.
Yes.
So it's about Wednesday of next week. So not until then, not this weekend, not Monday, not Tuesday, probably Wednesday or Thursday of next week.
Which is crazy because this thing formed last Saturday and it's only halfway across the Atlantic, and it won't be near us until the middle of next week. So it really kind of shows you that timeline of how long it takes for these systems to move across the entire Atlantic.
That's the frustrating thing. We have the technology and the ability to see these things coming from so far away, but we still aren't there to give you the details until we get so much closer. So that leaves about a 7-day window in the middle where we can't say that much yet. We can't clear you, but we also don't want you to get too excited. It's kind of the in-between time frame.
And before we end, we're almost out of time, Tim. I wanted to ask you this, and maybe you know, maybe you don't know. I'm sure you do because you love the stats like me. Where are you guys as far as like wettest August? Because I've been getting that question a lot in the past couple of days. And also, how many days in a row with rain? It's only been 4 for us because we actually had a dry weekend last week. I think people forget we actually dried out for a couple days before the rain started up again. But we had 9 days in a row with measurable rain. But right now for Charlotte, and this is just for Charlotte Douglas International, we're right now at about 32, 33rd wettest. But that's only 14 days into the month. And when I think about August, this is the middle of tropical season. We've had some very wet August months because of tropical systems. So the fact that we're already there and it's not even halfway through the month really tells you something.
Yeah, we're not even close. We're like our 30th wettest August here. We haven't had too much rain in Greensboro proper, so we're doing okay, but we still don't want any more rain.
Yeah,
Please.
well, here, some time to drought. So thanks for joining us tonight. Colin is up next with more on WCNC+. We'll be talking about air, I think, for the next 7 days as well, so don't go away.